and you're more or less with me than you were yourself. And we both know that you won't go without my help. And you're allowed to lead on someone other than yourself. And your feelings are not a burden to anybody else. And I hope you know it'll always be fine to not be alright all the time. And I hear you through words you'll never have to say. And I see through your eyes are here, but your mind's away. And I know you well enough to know you're not alright. And I hope you know it'll always be fine to not be alright all the time. And I hope you know it'll always be fine to not be alright all the time. It'll always be fine to not be alright all the We'll be fine. It'll always be fine to not be alright all the time.
Is it working now?
Yep. There we go. All right. Are you able to zoom in? Yep. Keep going. See if we can get a full page.
Hold on a second. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. It's not working.
Just grab the window that, like the file that you had just before. I'll take you off screen. Just while you sort that out.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened.
Nope. Still another.
There you go. You can see that?
Nope, just a blank screen.
Really?
Got nothing open.
That is weird. I don't know how I lost it.
Yeah, I think you closed the window. The file that you actually had open.
All right, let me go back into this. Sorry. Do it one more time. See if this works.
We're just sorting out some technical issues, guys, and we'll be with you soon. Just trying to present a screen, and we'll get the interview started soon. So thank you for joining us, and thanks for hanging around. While you're here, hit that subscribe button, and if you got time, and hit the share button as well. Link. You had it just there, Christian. You just shrunk it. I can see it on my screen here. Yeah, there you go. All right. Okay, so let's get the ball rolling. And I'll bring it up when we talk about it. All right, guys, welcome to Plunge-POP, which is basically a one-on-one interview, kind of more professional than our local conversations or discussions that we have on the other shows. This one's really about artist's journey, talking about their background, talking about the kind of the key points on their journey to where they are now, and also future work and projects they've been part of and projects that are coming up. And usually, also at the end of it, we look at what is coming up and how to, where they're promoting it and what platforms they're using and so on. So without further ado, Christian, would you like to, I'll put you on solo and get you to introduce yourself a bit and then we'll get into it.
Hey, how you doing? Name's Christian Zaffo. I'm a comic creator. I just recently had my project funded on Kickstarter. It's this Chosen One universe, the COU. It was basically a universe launch, superheroes, sci-fi, steampunk, fantasy, all in one universe. So yeah, it was a flip book with my two major characters, along with an anthology book with about 6 other short stories on different characters and places within the universe. And I'm now working diligently on getting the follow-up, which is going to be called Addicts Unbound Fury, which is one of my 2 main characters. And it's going to be a 3-issue story arc. And I'm hoping to launch that in the next couple of months. Once I'm able to get the first project into everybody's hands, then I'll be looking to launch that.
Awesome. All right. So now, how did you get started? Like, what made you think like this is what I want to do? What was your childhood like? And sort of,
Oh, I mean, I've always been into artwork, but comics especially. I think I was 8 years old when I picked up my first comic book, and it was 2 comics at a local stationery. It was not GI Joe. I'm sorry, Transformers. I think it was issue 3 of their miniseries that came out back then, back in the 80s, and X-Men. It was I'm forgetting the number right now, but it had Storm on the cover, and it was illustrated by, I believe, Barry Windsor Smith was the illustrator on it. And just something about them caught my eye. They looked interesting. I'd never seen a comic before that. And I picked them up, brought them home, and fell in love with them. And then the next thing, before you know it, I had my my dad taking me to a local comic shop that he had found it because he saw my interest in it. And that was it from there. And, I started seeing things like, I always loved the X-Men from then. But I started picking up GI Joe. I started picking up, what was the other thing? The Incredible Hulk. The comic shop I went to, which has been gone since I was probably in my teens. They had the oversized comic books. They were like magazine size, and they had a whole bunch of Incredible Hulk ones like that. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. I like the character, but I always just loved the regular comic size that we're used to nowadays over the big ones. And it's just, so that was really the only thing I collected at that size. But I mean, man, there were so many things, and just to go in there like a kid, and you see all the bins with all the comics in it, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize there was that many. But yeah, that's what got me into the genre. And then just, my father's side of the family has been artists. So my grandfather, my father, myself, and they were fine artists, and they did a lot of portrait realism. My grandfather, though, did do children's books, which was very cartoony, realistic feel to it. So that's what got me into doing art. And I just put the two together and said, yeah, I was mimicking what I saw in the comic books.
Yeah.
And I was mimicking them. So I kind of did as a teenager, I would do like a portrait here and then do like comic characters over here. And it was all over the place.
Yeah.
And then when I got to high school, I'd say maybe like junior year, I really got into drawing.
About 12, 13.
Yeah. What was it like? So high school, like 14, 15.
Okay.
And it's been so long now, but I think I was like around 14, 15, where I decided this is what I wanted to do with my artwork, is I wanted to do comics.
Right.
And started, I had a best friend of mine at the time who's actually still around, doing comics as well. But we started taking our stuff to conventions and having, portfolio reviews and stuff like that done, and just going and getting sketchbooks from our favorite artists if we saw them there and having their opinions. At the time we were doing that, it was, the 90s. It was Image was out, and it was like the 90s revolution for comics and art.
So how old are you?
Right now I'm 40. I'm going to be 49 this year.
Right. So you're probably around about what? Because when Image, 91's when Image took off. So I was around about, I don't know, maybe about 20. No, I was about 19 or something. So
I graduated high school in 93.
Right.
So I was on the young side. So I was 17. I wasn't quite 18 yet.
Right. Okay.
I turned 18 over the summer after school was out. So my birthday's in July.
Right. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out like when Image came out, and then because like wasn't it about 91 or something when Image took off?
I think it was 91. Yeah. Like I said, I had my 11th grade and 12th grade I had left in high school, and I was collecting them. So we were collecting for about 2 years in high school, me and my friend, and then it continued outside of there. And
so at high school, did you have anybody you've got your family, with your dad and your granddad and fine arts. Did you have anybody like encouraging you at high school, and like teachers or anything like that? Because I know a lot of times, sometimes, like for me, it was like nobody really was there to say, hey, here, do art. It was more about reading, because I had problems with reading. With art, and you deciding to go that way, was there somebody going, hey, this is what you should be doing, or this is where your talent lies?
No one really pushed us or me in that direction. We, like I said, I had a best friend, and we kind of like pushed each other into trying to break into comics like at a young age, and we both decided that's what it was. I had an art teacher, and her name was Mrs. Garnett, and she was my art teacher in 9th grade. I want to say it was earlier than my love for comics. And she liked my art in general. And the funny story is I had done a portrait. We were doing pastels. It was supposed to be kind of abstract, and it came out looking like a portrait. And I didn't like it, and I threw it out at the end of class. I just kind of like flipped it into the garbage can. She took it out of the garbage can and submitted it to a Channel 13 art contest, without my knowing. And she told me, she just called up my parents one day and said, hey, I want to come over and talk to you and Chris. And she told me she put it in the thing and it won. And they had this big event for us where we would go there, and you get to see it hung up and framed, and they filmed it for their TV thing. Now they had been doing this. It was one of, what was it? It was one of 500 that they chose out of like 5,000 or something like that. If I might be having the numbers slightly off, but it was a small selection of a large submission group, and they did it every year.
Right.
And this happened to be the year where they took 500 from all of the winners over 13 years, and they were going to put them into a permanent museum, so to speak, is what they said. Like they had a museum somewhere where these would be permanently displayed as long as that museum was around. And it had got accepted into that. And so my parents get dressed up. They make me go because I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel up to this, whatever. And we get in there and I see which one it is. And everybody's excited. The art teacher's excited. My parents are excited. Oh, you're lucky to have this have been picked. Wow, that's a really big achievement, whatever. Out of so many people, yours was picked as well. And I remember looking at it and finally seeing what it was. And I was like, I threw that out. That was garbage. And I was so upset that that's what she had decided to put in there. I really wasn't being, wasn't a kid, but I was still young. And I was like, I thought it was horrible as an artist. I threw this thing out. And now this thing is going to hang somewhere permanently. It took me a while to be kind of like grateful for it and happy about it, because all I kept thinking was like, they hung my piece of garbage up it.
Yeah.
So, but it was fun. But she saw something there, and she always supported my artwork. But she wasn't around when I had the bug to do comic books, where I knew that's where I was going to go with my artwork.
So is that painting, is that pastel work still up hanging in that museum, or is that museum moved on?
I have no idea. I mean, shoot, the last time I even inquired about it, I was in my 20s, and it was still around. I mean, I guess Channel 13, I think it's PBS, or it used to be PBS. It was I guess if you were to look them up and see if they have a permanent art museum, you might come across it. But like I said, it was there for a while. And I just, I didn't have pictures from the event and everything. When we went, and I think the question came up the last time I looked. Is it still there? And it was at the time, but I just really haven't gone back to that. I don't know why. Maybe it's still in the back of my head. I'm like, they hung my garbage up.
Yeah, I wonder. It's kind of like, why didn't you choose the one I really, really love? But like Crooked Painter said, it's always the art you least suspect, because it's like musicians, right? They basically make all this music, and then the studio picks the one that's gonna be the hit for the radio, and it's like, and you think this is the one I really enjoy playing. So there's when you look at it, there's songs that Metallica doesn't play live, right? Because it just don't want to play them live, and they go, why? It seemed like when my Maiden would play songs that they would never play live, but it's like people love it. And maybe, and I think artists are like that. So after having that chosen, and how did you, kind of go, well, this is what I want to do and not do that? Was that kind of like the point for you to go, well, that's what the people want, but that's not what I want, and this is what I'm going to do now?
No, because it's weird. Life happens, and my artwork, as far as trying to do it for a living, and get seen by a comic company or whatever, took a back seat. I just wasn't. I was working a lot. I had, I was into my college years at that time, so I was into going out and having a good time, and I'd still take in a convention here and there, but I wasn't doing page submissions anymore. I wasn't staying on top of it. For a long period of time, my artwork took other avenues. I would do portraits here and there. I would do all freelance work. I would do tattoo designs. I did a lot of stuff like that. I did some caricatures, and then what else? As far as art, that's what I was keeping busy with. I did work for I worked for a fine artist for a while, doing some stuff with them for a long period of time. They're part-time, like 2 days a week. I actually started that back in high school when I was 16, and when I got out of high school and I was in college, I did that more often. I was making more money there and whatever. So that was my foot in the art world still was working for that guy. But yeah, for a long time, it was just work, school, have a good time. It wasn't until COVID came around that I put all my energy back into comics as far as, my artwork was concerned. And these were all stories though and characters that I had come up with back when I back in high school, and I had kept them all the way through. I would refine them here and there when I would ever go back and look at them or rewrite something or redraw a character. I'd come up with a new concept for their story, and I just started grabbing all these things that I had laying around and piecing them together and creating this universe. And that's really it. That's when I decided. I said it's as good as time as any now for me to put this together. And I mean, I should have guessed, but I didn't realize that that's what everybody was doing. Everybody that had wanted to break in or wanted to create something had now used this time to do just that, which was really good. I mean, because the crowdfunding avenue was opened up. That when I discovered that was a thing, I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. This is I wish this was around in the 90s when
So talking about the 90s, right, and 2000s and stuff like that. So you mentioned like doing conventions and stuff. What were you doing there at those conventions?
Oh, we would just show up with we'd show up with a backpack because we'd buy, we were fanboys too, so we'd buy figures and comics and rarities that we didn't see in our local comic shops, but also portfolio reviews. We'd bring our portfolio. I know I would put my latest stuff in there, even if it wasn't page work. And I first thing I do when I get there is go, oh, who's doing portfolio reviews this weekend or today, and put our names in there, and that's it. And then we'd get our time slot, wait in line, show a review, and and then there was some places, some booths, some companies were like, oh, we're hiring X amount of new artists. So we'd go there. It wasn't actually a review as much as it was like you're applying. So they'd sit you down and say, oh, well, and they're looking at us, we're young. And it's like, all right, why should I give you a job? And you give them something. And even if they liked it, a lot of times they'd give you the standard cut and paste. Yeah. Do more backgrounds. A little more dynamic. Everything looks good, but and then once in a while you get you're really not what we're looking for. We're looking for more realistic feel, and which was a kicker to me because I was like, oh, if I had known that, if I would have stuck with the photorealism that my father did. That's like, but I think it's I think they were getting so many people, especially back in the 90s, that it was probably really hard for them. They see so much artwork all day long. It's just it all turns into mud. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not going to remember you. So people started saying, here's my email, send me something. I'll look at it when I get a chance. But that's what we would do. Go in there and try and just hope to get either good feedback to make our work better, or off chance that someone said, hey, you got what we're looking for. Hey, we got this. Even if it was just like a splash page, you're like, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Because I've never had that experience because I've never, we put it, we have our own, I run, with my friends, I run my own convention here. So we've, I watch kids talking to Shane, right, who's one of my best friends, and he's the artist, and he's just put out his own comic book. And I see kids watch him because I don't draw. I won't even be there, even if I used to draw really well, right? And for the last, I think probably it's been like about 30 years now when I stopped drawing because I had an accident. And so I watch them and the kids, and, we encourage kids to draw themselves. And I'm the guy who's going, this is how you go see him for drawing, come to see me for story writing and stuff like that. But I've never had that experience of going up to somebody and going, here's my artwork. And that's why I wanted to ask about that, because I know a lot of people, before used to be able to do that. Now, from what I hear is that there isn't that much option to actually go up to some, company or whatever and go, here's my work, because now everything's online. You go here, we've had people come to our, to Rising Sun and go, hey, this is what we want to do. Do you have any work available? And I'll go and look at it and I go, and I'll pick one image that and I've got a story in my mind. I go, that one. And if you can do that well, then I will put you with this book. And I've done it twice now. If it's, like I was mentioned today on Facebook, it's like a dragon. I just saw the dragon. I said, cool. I saw a werewolf. I go, cool. You'll be okay for this story, and you'll be okay for that. So with everybody now that's online, how has it been for you? You know, or like, I mean, because you do it yourself, right? And you're writing
Yeah.
yourself, you're going to work. Have anybody else approached you, say, hey, look, I'd like to work with you. Do you have pages, and do you have a story that I can do artwork for you for? What has it been like?
I've gotten some messages from people asking if I had anything, and at this point in time, because like I said, I'm still waiting for my pre-press to be ready so that I can send. I think in the next couple of days all the digital copies are going out, so I feel really good about that finally. But realistically, with the print time orders, I'm probably, even if I get it back by the end of this week, it's going to be about another month before I can get anything in house to ship out. So I'm looking at the beginning, like springtime, sometime launching my next one. So I really didn't have, other than me catching up on the drawing for the next books, I don't have anything that I could give out. Did I have, I guess, the funds now to, because I believe in paying people promptly. I like working with people. I give you half up front, half at the back end. And I want to make sure I have those funds to give to you before I say, hey, I got this. I want to hire you for this. I want to hire you for that. Unless it's someone I already worked with, then I'll tell them, listen, this is coming up soon. I just want to know if you're going to be available. But I still won't ask someone to really start on it unless I can pay them that initial payment. So I had to say, listen, I don't have anything right now. If you want to send me something, I'll take a look at it and keep you in mind. But at this point, really I've only been outsourcing color work, because I'm just learning it myself now. I'm writing and drawing basically everything for this, except with the exception of I have a bunch of guest covers and stuff. But that, aside from that, everything else is all mine. So except the coloring, I do hire out the coloring, and I'm learning that so that I could hopefully take on a little bit of that as well. Put some, even if it's me just coloring my own covers now. But so as far as colorists, I do get a lot for that. I have put out in the past. I have put out social media ads asking for colorists, and to send me a link to your artwork or whatever so I can check it out. And it's basically the same as a writer would for an artist. Is I look at it and see, do I think their coloring style fits the story I'm telling. I had one artist, and it came out really good, who had already done one of the 8-page stories for me. And I asked her, I said, listen, I have this story that needs to be done in like a sepia monotone, like to give it a feel. Is that something you can do? And they said, yeah, I'll try it, and it came out really good. So I liked it. So I hired them to do that as well. They ended up doing I think 3 stories for me in this original thing. There's a bunch of different colorists that I worked with, and cover artists. The first person I had to do a guest cover for me was Andy Smith, because I was like, Andy Smith and Bart Sears were 2 of my, the guys that inspired me. In the informative era, like the 90s, and their anatomy, and their just the dynamics of the way they did everything. It was Bart Sears first, and then it turned me on to Andy Smith, who I was able to follow closer over the years because he just had a bigger body of work coming out at the time. And I don't know. That's I had both of them do a cover, actually, or Bart Sears also did a cover for me for this initial campaign. So I had a Bart Sears, Andy Smith cover, Chris Graves. I had he did a cover for me, and on the next one I have Vic Medina actually did 2 covers for me. So that's going to be pretty. I'm pretty excited about the way they came out. So I'm going to have those on.
So I've been trying to because I don't know the name of Andy, and so I've been searching this. So for people who don't know, like myself, this is Andy Smith's work. I don't know people's I know people's artwork. I sometimes don't know their names, but if you know the writers' names, I know the writers, right? Because being a writer and all that. So this is some major work. I mean, like
Yeah,
you're
he just did
mentioning,
this.
yeah. And I don't like to ask about people's rates and stuff, but like, you know, how was it like working with, what was the proposal that you gave to him to say, hey, look, this is what I'm looking for a cover for this work?
Well, once he agreed to do it,
Mm,
then we worked out what exactly it was, and I basically just gave them the character designs, told them a little bit about their story, like what kind of characters they are, and I told him the same thing with Bart Sears. I told them both. I said, hey, do what you want with it, like as far as the cover style and design. I said, over the years I haven't seen I haven't seen a cover that or an interior page that these guys had done that I was like, oh, that's horrible. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I had I mean, they could have done anything, and I'm pretty sure it would have been fine. So I was very happy with the ones that did come up, though.
I'm just going to pop up Bart Sears as well. Like, let me see, because I think a lot of times, people say names and I'm like not aware of them, and it's cool to just sometimes to be able to see that pop up. Come on.
Yeah, he had out back in the 90s. He had launched it. It didn't go far, and then he had relaunched it maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. Relaunched it and put out more stuff for it. The Ominous Universe, Ominous Press, I think is the name of it. And then they were all his characters. It was really cool.
Right.
Yeah, he put out the how-to. He was doing I don't know if you remember Wizard Magazine.
Yeah.
So Bart Sears had a stint in there on their how to draw.
Okay.
And he more recently actually put them in hardback form. It's 2 volumes, and I think he's currently working on a 3rd. But yeah, that was cool. And again, it was one of those things that came out just too late. You know what I'm saying, for me, because I remember when those were coming out, and then Wizard stopped doing it, and then they stopped going to print altogether. I was like, I really wish all those had been put in a book form. And I had wished that for years. Like, I would love to have this how to draw thing in a book format from Bart Sears. And sure enough, like I said, like 6-7 years ago, he put them out finally. And I was like, yes.
Was that Vampirella? I just saw.
No, it's a character Maiden that he did for Heavy Metal Magazine.
Right.
But he's done a lot of covers. He did that Justice League Europe, that comic that came out back in I think it was the 80s, late 80s, or not early 80s. I'm sorry, not late 80s. He did that cover where they're all the headshots are kind of looking up.
Now, what the work that you've just put out, what is it called?
I'm sorry?
Out of here. With the work you just finished with the crowdfunding, right? You just finished one. What was it called? And can we see some work from there?
Yeah, so it was called the COU, the Chosen One Universe, basically the COU Rebang. No, it started as the Big Bang. There was two. There was two second chance campaigns after the original one funded, and they were called the COU Rebanged because it was a second chance. But it's basically the Big Bang moment was what it was called, and it was comprised of the main stuff in it was an anthology of 6 stories, 6 independent stories in an anthology hardcover book or perfect bound, and a flip book floppy where half the book is one way, flip it over, the other half of the book is the other way. Those were my 2 main characters, which are Addix and Aaron.
Right.
Yeah, there it is there. So so these 2 images here are the 2 covers. Left is Andy Smith, right is Bart Sears. So these two gentlemen right here that you're looking at are the 2 main characters. Addix is the guy on the left, and Aaron is basically like my Superman type character, guy on the right there. And so I focused them on the flip book because they're like the 2 staples of my universe. And so they both got a 15-page story, intro story, one on either side. And then, like I said, there was six other stories that I put in for the anthology book, and they're all different, unique. One's a fantasy story, one's a steampunk story, one's takes place in on a ship doing space travel.
Yeah.
You know, there's some more. There's another superhero one in there. And basically, so what it is my universe doesn't work off of the idea. The superheroes in my universe, they don't work off of the idea of like the X gene. You know what I'm saying? Like that premise that. But it is altered DNA. What had happened briefly, because it encompasses all my superhero stories in this universe, is humanity has, stopped worshiping the gods of old, like the Norse gods and the Greek gods and everything. But you always hear these stories in Greek mythology where the gods would come down and mingle with the humans and then go back up to Mount Olympus, or Odin always was messing around down here. And so it takes that premise where, as the humans stopped worshiping and believing in the gods were still coming down here and messing around. And humans treated them basically like aliens. They captured them, certain ones, and they basically, what they do is they steal their DNA. And the scientists, you always have mad scientists, so they start splicing human DNA with the god DNA, and they use test subjects and have created or have just found out how to create super humans, basically, by splicing them with god DNA. So in my universe, we call it the god gene. And it's a government run facility that's doing this testing on humans that are candidates that basically have nothing else going in their lives. They basically sign their lives away to be experimented on. And the main character, Addix, is one of those people. He's an ex-army, highly decorated army guy who lost his wife in a car accident and was trying to find his answers at the bottom of a bottle for many years. He had a daughter that was basically at a young age supporting the two of them by doing everything from collecting cans to getting part-time jobs. And the government comes to him and says, hey, we'll take care of your daughter. We'll take care of you if you just sign on the dotted line. So he does, and nothing's ever the same after that. And in the short story itself, you get a really good, solid view of what his what that origin's like. I kind of streamlined it so you get caught up to speed relatively fast, and kind of end it. It's 15 pages, and I kind of ended on a cliffhanger that leads you into this new upcoming arc that I'm working on.
Right.
So I look at these as all the issue zeros for my universe, basically, the anthology and the flip book. So all these stories, eventually, when they get their turn at a story arc, will springboard from these initial short stories.
Okay. So you've got all these different covers. With how many? Sorry, I might have missed it. How many pages was the anthology?
So the anthology, I think it's 72 pages.
Right.
And then there's extra stuff, like there's a sketchbook section. There's it's offered different ways too. Like, so on the last second chance I did, which was with Fund My Comic, I offered a hardcover which had everything for the campaign in there. So it had the flip book in there, it had the anthology book, it had a sketchbook, it had there's an 8-page bio story. Then it has, as you're looking right there, those are prints. If you can go back to that for a second. So if you look at this, these are a print set that I created. There's 5 of them. One of them's Bart Sears. The other 4 are, you're aware of the professionals with, it's a group of guys that have been doing this for a while. Aaron Lepresti's in it.
Right. Yeah.
So I got Dan Fraga, Aaron Lopresti, Graham Nolan, and Andy Smith all to agree, and I have their copyrights on the bottom, but agree to let me use their characters in what I called crossover prints. So it's a different female character from my universe with their creator-owned characters that they've all successfully funded on Indiegogo or Kickstarter.
Right.
And so this was a set of prints that I created for that. So these were offered in two forms: a large form and a small, 5x7 form size. But they're also in as a page for each in the hardcover book as well. So, like I said, everything I offered for this is going to be in that hardcover as well. And I think that when I go for the next campaign, there'll be a catch-up tier with that hardcover offered again. With a different cover on the book to make it its own. But I might throw a little something extra in it or change something up. But pretty much that'll be offered again too, because it gives you a good taste of what you missed without me having to go back and order everything individually again, like the prints and everything, which were all, I did them all, just they were made to order for the campaign, and if you didn't get it, that's it. But yeah, I worked with each one of them through the process of those. And, I gave them the original design. They said, change this or change that. Then we went to the finished inks. I got them to say okay to that. Then I had someone color all of these for me, same colorist. And then once it was colored, I sent it again for their approval. They give the final stamp, and then that was it. So,
right. Yeah, I wondered how it was like when you get like people of their sort of caliber or whatever, because they bring like I was looking and into the whole when you look at EVS, right, who's 30 years of history as an artist, name, the brand, his name just brings people to the yard, right? Boys to the yard, whatever, because the name is on there. It's like if you have Jim Lee, that's going to bring people's eyes to your work, because they have their own audience, they have their own readership, and they all have their own fans. What was it like in trying to work with them in that sense, not financially, but just in that sense, like, hey, I know this is all going to come. How did you organize that or work through that period?
I mean, really, it was just a lot of reaching out, man. It really was. It started with Andy Smith, who I had already had as a friend on my Facebook for some years, just based on art and communication. And I had gone back and forth with him, listening, it basically is just like the spiel you would give someone if you met him at a convention, like, oh man, I love your work. I've been following you for years. And I told him, I said, listen, like, he saw my artwork, and I guess he could see that there was influence there from him and Bart Sears. And I said, the two of you guys, I mean, and you're not the only people I looked at, but you were the major ones, and you could see that your influence on my stuff. Like, I really, for years, I loved your stuff. And basically, we just got to talking, and I said, listen, I have a Kickstarter coming up. I would love it if I could hire you to do a cover for that. I mean, do you even do that? Because I didn't even know going in if they were beyond that, like, oh, I don't have time, and or no, I can't do that. And he said, yeah. I mean, he was really, really easy to deal with and talk to, and really cool guy. And then when we were done with our business, I mean, we're still talking back and forth. I've gone on his show, the Andy Smith podcast, back when the campaign first launched, and from there I said, what do you think? Do you think the other guys from the professionals, whatever, would be interested in this? Oh, I pitched him. I'm sorry, back up. I pitched him the idea for the print set. I said, is this something that, is this something that can even be done? Like, I don't know if there's any legalities behind it or whatever. I said, obviously I'll put your copyright and whatever. He said, yeah, just put the copyright and work with me with it. And if everything's good to go when it's done, then yeah. So we did that. And then I asked him, you think the other guys would be up to this? And sure enough, I mean, there was two guys I could not get to respond to me. One was Art T. Bear, and one was who was the other one? Oh, Bill Tucci.
Right.
And I was a little bit relentless. I kept messaging them. I'd see them on stream, and I'd I'd chat in. I'd be like, go check your your Facebook messenger for, because I had sent them, listen, here's the sketch I did of the thing. This is what I want to do. Let me know if you're okay with it. I never heard from either one of them. So they're the only two that I didn't get to put into that set, which I would have liked to. I mean, I've actually finished their artwork. I just never sent it to color because I hadn't heard from them. So I still have those original pieces of art. But it was relatively, the same with Bart Sears. It was, Andy said, just reach out to him. I think he'll be receptive to it, whatever, because they're friends. And I did. And he's like, I'm a little busy right now. Do you mind if, like, send me the stuff? Are you okay with it being like a month or two? And I said, yeah, I'm fine with it. And I followed up with him as that time went by. And yeah, he did it. And I thought it was great. So, yeah. I actually just, so it was all digital between their art. It's all digital artwork. Except I think Bart, I don't know if Andy did it too, but I know Bart Sears drew his and inked his, classically. And so I just actually bought the physical original artwork from him. And it's, I think they sent it out this week sometime. So I should be getting it any day. And that's, that'll be cool. I want to have that to frame it,
Yeah.
But yeah, so, they were easy to work with. I mean, it was a lot of, anyone I got was a lot of just reaching out and asking the question, like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? Showing them what it is, from my end, my artwork, maybe some of the guys that I got to do it after the campaign was up. I just linked them to the campaign, like, hey, go check it out. And it was, I haven't had, you hear all these horror stories about colorists or pencilers or writers or whoever it is that fall off, or they get paid and they disappear, or guys that don't pay or whatever. And I gotta say, for the first time out, I worked with a good number of people. I mean, I had I think it was 4 cover artists and at least 5 colorists. Could be 6, 5 colorists. So that's a good amount of people right out of the gate to try and juggle and deal with and remember who's doing what, who gets paid what, whatever. Yeah. 0 problems with any of them. I haven't, nothing late, nothing, all good things to say. Like, knock on wood, I was lucky to have that kind of experience where I didn't have to chase somebody for something.
So, when did you so you started getting back into it, right? What was 2001? 21, wasn't it? Like when we had the COVID thing. So did you prep to get into, how did you go about deciding what work you're going to do and which ones would make the cut and which won't, which characters, and how would you choose, the story you want to tell? Because I mean, you had all this ideas way back when, and now you're collecting it all into this.
Well, I think Addicts and Aaron, they were always the staples of my my universe. So I knew right out the gate that they were going to get top billing in this first campaign. The other ones that came after that, it was what do I think I have a story to tell right now on which characters. And I didn't want to put a bunch of the same type of stuff. I wanted the genres to be broken up to show, that we can do these different things, that we can do a little bit of your D&D fantasy-esque looking stuff, story types. We could do your sci-fi story. We could do your superhero story. We could do a steampunk, weird type of thing. I wanted it to pretty much run the gamut of what I could do. And so I wanted to display that. So that's how the selection pretty much came about for what I was going to do. Also, there's a pirate story in there, like a modern day, pirate mixed with sci-fi. I wanted a little bit of everything in there. And I would say it's a 50-50 mix. 50% of the characters I used were characters that have always been around since I started creating characters that I just modernized, updated. And then the other 50% of the characters you'll see were made up for story ideas that I had, but they didn't have a main character yet. Like I hadn't fleshed out what that person would look like or anything until this campaign. So it's 50-50, 50% old, 50% new. At least visually, new. Conceptually, it's all been around and just evolved over the time, you know. I mean, I remember I used to have a little book that I'd write character names in after I drew something new. At one point, I had like 175 characters that were mine, you know, and I had drawn them in one way or another at some point. And I came across that book while I was doing this. It was in a bunch of old stuff of mine that I had found. It was being stored at my mother's house, and you know, so I went through that book and I was like, oh yeah, and to see the ones that you've held on to all the years in your mind and you've been doing it all the time, I was like, wow, I can't believe I didn't realize I created this character that long ago. And then you come across other ones and you're like, oh man, I forgot about that character. Well, let me redesign that character now and update them because I liked it. And that's basically what I did for a lot of these characters. So, you know, it was fun. It was nostalgic for me to go back and readdress a lot of things I did when I was younger.
So 2021, how long did it take you to, you know, bring that 70 pages of work together?
To get it written, planned out, and then actually finished, it took me about 1.5 years to do all the artwork. The rest of the time has been coloring, figuring out certain digital aspects. And now, like I said, the last stage is the pre-press going in, figuring out how to do. I mean, I spent a couple of months just trying to figure out how to present it. Like, where do I go? What crowdfunder do I use? How do I set up the page? Because this was all brand new to me. I had no idea what I was doing. And again, I had input into how to do a lot of that from people that did this or have been doing it for a while now at that point. And there was a person that has been helping me a lot understand certain aspects of this funding stuff and printing and all that stuff. I got a lot of help through calls and visual stuff from them, but I wanted to put it together myself. You know what I'm saying? So even though I was being shown how to do it, there was still a learning curve on my end that had to be, you know, I had to figure it out. And you know, I'm good traditional artwork. You give me a pencil, pen, whatever, I can handle that. I'm getting good on tablet drawing. Like I have an iPad Pro. I use that now for digital. You know, I'll do it if I'm doing something in inks. I like to just do pencil to color, but if I'm doing something in inks or I need to adjust something, I'll scan it in and do it on the tablet. So I'm getting familiar with that. But as far as, you know, the Kickstarter stuff and the crowdfunding stuff, as far as like getting stuff ready for print and all that stuff, yeah, it's like I'll get it sooner or later. But right now it's like a different language to me, and I'm like, you know, I don't have my Rosetta Stone for it, so yeah, it's like I can't.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people who are new to this, including myself, right? When it comes to pre-press, they don't know what, you know, how to set up the files, and you know why, know how the printer itself is going to go. Well, this is what I need, you know, and this is what the format's going to be. Send it in this format, and then when you get there, the colors are all wrong, and you know, there's all this back and forwards behind the scenes that a lot of people first time don't understand. You know, because you're like, what you see on your page on your computer might be off, might not be, you know, set right. You know, like, I mean, I was doing something the other day and I saw one color on the friggin' Skype, and then I changed it to the other screen, right? I saw a different color. It was like darker, and I'm like, crap, I just told him to darken the skin color when it was actually right the first time, you know? And it's like, now it looks a bit darker, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna later on we'll figure it out, because that that's something you don't really think about, like actual screen, you know, the friggin' technology in front of you could be totally different set to, because the printer's got the right set, because the printer has to have it exactly for every single color, because that's what they work off, the the way it's going to be perfect. But ourselves, we don't know the technology, and therefore we don't know how to set it up. Because
Right.
sometimes, even when you go in there, you mess around and go, oh, this is better. It doesn't, because you have automatic settings and all that, and that could ruin it for you, because if you try to do it, like how you have like night setting or daytime cinema
Yeah.
setting, something like that, that could like you'll be my, oh crap, I didn't turn it back to artwork setting, normal, and that could really, at the end of it, could come out really dark and muddy, and you don't realize that. And
Well,
I
it's a
think,
big thing for me too, because
yeah,
I'm partially colorblind. So it, you know, add that to the fact that the computer screen isn't really showing you the color you need. So what I don't mind if it's the color of a building or a flower that's not real on a planet far away. It could be any color it wants to be. Clothing could be any color. It doesn't matter. But when it comes to, like you said, like when it comes to skin tone or flesh color, you
yeah,
need to make sure you're doing the right thing. Otherwise, I did one, and I learned my lesson from that. I did one, and the person was green when you looked at it. So it looked like perfect flesh tone on what I was working on. But then when you transferred it anywhere else or opened it up with anything else, the person was green. And I was like, oh, so I created a Star Trek person, Shrek like. It's like, no. So what I started doing, and it's very tedious, but what I started doing is pulling in a picture already colored from somewhere else, whether it's someone else's work or a photograph or whatever, that's using the skin tone that I want, and just grabbing the color from there.
right, just with a
Sometimes
paint
that doesn't
dropper,
work
right?
either, but yeah, right.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't work either. Sometimes it grabs the shadow pixel in between that you don't even see, and now you got that color, and it's
Yeah.
like, where did that come from?
That's actually quite a good point there, because I've never, like when you're trying to get the skin tone, you can, like, I mean, even if that, you get the wrong tone, you can go right into it, magnify it, grab it, and bring that. Because I think it's a good way for beginners to actually learn about skin tone. Because I remember when I was trying to color something, and I was like, how do I get the shading? And I'm like, how do I drop it right? So I'm like going, okay, I'll do layers, right? And then I'll work backwards from it. So on the lighter one, it'll be like right at the back will be dark, and then I'll go lighter, 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 and then I'll like slowly erase away with like a soft edge thing of eraser, and then like slowly get my tones that I want. And these are all skills you kind of learn, but like, I mean, from like actually what you call painting and stuff
Well,
like that, right?
that's
But when
an
you do
old
it on digital,
technique.
yeah,
That dates back way before computers. A lot of people used to do it with acetate, and they do the different layers of colors, and then when you just laid them all on top of each other, you had a full image. And I started the same way. Like when I was trying to figure out digital coloring, I did what you just said. You do the same thing, but with layers, and you just drop them over each other, and then finally you have to.
yeah,
But I tell you once, and we're talking maybe like a month ago, it finally clicked for me on like how to do it. And I was like, wow. And, I have a lot less layers now. Well, not a lot less, but I have less layers now than that, because you do it that other way, and you end up at the end of the day, you have like 1,000 layers, because you did 10 layers for just the skin tone alone. Now you got the clothing on another set, another 10.
yeah.
You're up in the hundreds before you know it. Your computer's lagging, and you're like, why is it running so slow?
Yeah.
Because you got an image with 1,000,000 layers on it.
Yeah, it's kind of a learning curve as well, because I think a lot of people, don't listen to other people, like to say like what's the easiest way to do it. I remember, I think it was Jeff Darrow or someone. I always get his name wrong. It's like he worked with what's his name? They had this like recently, like the last 2 years, they had a anime series that was based in the UK. It's like the last people surviving in a drowned city or something. But I remember like coloring, and he was on YouTube, right? And I was on Facebook with him, and he said, hey, if you want to learn how to color, just watch this video. I did this tutorial on it. I'm like, wow. And I went on there and we're like, okay, so this is how you do flats, and this is how you do it, and that's how you love it. I'm like, got it. Just took about 5 minutes or 10 minutes of watching his video. I was set for coloring, and I think a lot of people, that's why I think I do this as well. It's like there's so many quick shortcuts you can learn just by people who have spent years learning it, and now you've stolen their idea that's taken them years to learn in 5 minutes. And I think it's quite interesting, especially because most of these guys like yourself, right, and myself, we've come from traditional and we've gone on to digital, and I don't even get a pick up a pen and paper anymore, right? If I want to do, I'm just on there going, okay, this, and with the digital, and here to my artists and do that. Whereas everybody who's learned it in the last, say, 30 years have come from traditional painting, coloring, and, pen and paper, inks. When they've moved on, like yourself, they've come across and brought that knowledge across to it. And I find those who've adapted quickly have been able to like really kill it, right? And those who are like not listening to other people or not wanting to say, well, ask the questions, are struggling with it. And so it's, I mean, with all the technology that's available to us, I think there's no need to struggle so hard anymore, because there's so many people out here explaining things and teaching on YouTube. Like watching people draw and stuff is amazing, but I just don't have the patience to watch people draw, because that's my thing. But if I hear somebody talk about writing, I'll have it on for hours, and I'm like, oh, Frank Miller's talking about writing. Okay, carry on drawing, carry on writing, and I'm listening, But if you're an artist, you should be watching those masters. You should be watching whoever's coming up, because you can steal their friggin' whole life from them in that mode. So did you have a hard time like struggling with like moving to digital, or was it?
Oh yeah. I did. So when I went to college in New York, I went to School of Visual Arts, and I say I graduated from School of Visual Arts. Technically, I didn't. I never received my diploma from there. But I went 2 full years, and then I had to go into like that part-time classes because I was working so much I didn't have time to go in full. So it took me longer. But I went to college for 8 years when all was said and done there, and I finished up everything I needed for my degree. But it's rough when you're putting yourself basic, mostly not all. Listen, my parents took out loans and whatever, but I did my hustle too to get through this, because it wasn't cheap. At the time I went, it was the #1 art school in the world, and then by the time I had finished, it was the #1 in the United States, because I think Japan had surpassed us in the ratings. But still, even to be the #1 in the U.S. for, I think it was for fine arts. I went there for cartooning and illustration, with a second in fine arts, and it was a great experience. I loved it. The school, it didn't feel like a school. They had different buildings all around the city, and but the best part about it was you were taught by professionals currently employed in the field,
right?
And I had Walt Simonson was one of my professors, which I thought was great, and for our final for that class, we all got to go to his house for a barbecue. And he basically, during the course of that day, he would go around to each person and each student in the class, sit down with them individually somewhere on his property, whether it was at a picnic bench or in his studio or whatever, and basically just let you know how he feels you're doing.
Right.
And I make mention to him, and in the bio story that I put with the campaign in the book, he was, basically, to quickly sum it up, he was just like, yo, keep doing what you're doing and just keep at it. It's like 50% talent, and the other 50% is your desire to reach that goal. You gotta, you're only gonna get. My father also used to say that, and I know a lot of people hear it. But he stood by it. You get out of something in life what you put into it. You don't just the good things in life ain't just coming at you for free.
Mm.
And it's true. It's true. You know, I put a lot, as much work as I possibly could, especially with COVID and everything, into establishing relationships with people in the industry, and with getting this done, and learning stuff that I didn't know how to do before. That's all a lot of work, especially when you're trying to do most of it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to lose control, especially not out of the gate. I didn't want to lose control of any aspect of the creative process by giving it to someone else to do for me. Because I need to learn it anyway. And God forbid I did do that, and that person ever was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore for you. I'm right back at square one. So,
Yeah.
you know, I like to pick people's brains and then try it myself, and get more comfortable with it so that I can do it in the future. But yeah, I kind of lost sight of that original question. But yeah, that's that part of the story.
Yeah, I think that sort of tenacity to stick with it is something that, like, you know, a lot of people have lost. I mean, I remember I jumped in and out of stuff all the time because I just didn't find it interesting. Yet everything I actually did is now, you know, everything's been brought into that. Even this morning, you know, I was talking to one of my artists over in Sweden, and he's like, I just didn't think about it. I said, like, that's because of my background, I'm able to think that way. You know, it's like I'm doing all this, and like I'm like, yeah, we could do this, we could do that. And it's like, oh, all I'm thinking about is art. I'm like, that's fine. That's all you have to think about. You don't have to think about anything else.
Right.
I'll think about what I need to think about to make this work for us. You know, because I'm like, the only reason I can think that way is because I've had training in that. I've spent time and, you know, jumping from this to that to that to that.
Right.
And even at that time, I was thinking, like, what the hell am I doing? I'm not finding anything peace of mind in any of these things, you know. And now all that knowledge is basically being put into what I'm doing now. And I think we worry too much early on about not being, being stuck in a career forever, and not actually trying to experience what we can experience. And one of the things I always like, I think I'm grateful for my parents, like especially my mom. It's like, we're going to take you out of school. We're going to get you in because you're not doing well. So, and you don't seem to be being happy at school. So we're going to go and do 6, like I think it was like a year of chef's course. You enjoy cooking, and you do that. That thing there has worked for me for so many years, on and off. I've spent 3 years doing that while, working in the bar as a bistro chef, while studying as a filmmaker, right? And working with a painter meant that I could do work on a Saturday painting that apartments block that I was with. And so now I knew how to friggin' paint, friggin' houses and stuff. And so, like, I think a lot of times people poo-poo like actual physical labor too much now, and they tend to, like, technology is that be all and end all. But what happens when it's not there? Like when your job, we're finding like people like losing their journalism job. Now, if they were doing like a part-time job as a cook, as a bar person, or whatever else, they can go, oh yeah, fine, I can't do that, I'm going to go do this now, And I think that's a worry for us now, is like people just think like physical labor is a bad thing, like I don't understand that with people.
Well,
because art is great, but
that's the, I would say that's this current generation, the new up and coming generation, as well as the one just prior to it. A lot of messaging has been, hey, get into computers, you can work from home, especially with COVID now. The guys and girls coming up after that, especially the ones that were graduating high school during that period. Your life was, for 2 years, your life was on your computer screen, and you learned how to do things from home. Teachers now need to know how to navigate like Zoom classing and all that other stuff. So for years, society has been gearing up the people to work from home, and there's this misconception that you're going to make $1 million doing it. Now, while there are some jobs that you can make a lot of money at from being at home, it's just like being a baseball player or a football player or an actor or actress. For every 1,000 people that go for that job, one person's getting it. And it's really weird because, you know, they see all these influencers on YouTube and other media, TikTok and all this other stuff, and they see, oh, they're making millions here and they're making millions here and they're streaming and they're making whatever. Like, you know, a lot of comic artists are looking at people like Ethan and saying, you know, or Eric Chai and saying, hey, look at their following and they're monetized and they're making all this money on super chats and all this other stuff. Yes, they are. They had this following coming into this. They are professionals, or like, you know, Eric July is new to comics, but he had been a huge YouTuber with a huge following for years. It was very easy to get them to come over and follow him. Whether they'll stay in the comic book realm or not is a different story. But my point is that even like people I don't know about that, but they're big influencers with huge crowds of thousands of people or millions of people or whatever. They're the one in their thousand. And when you go on YouTube, all you're seeing are the people that made it, and there's thousands of them. So you're thinking, you know, if you're a kid or you're new to this, or you think that's where your future lies, well, you're seeing all these people doing really well, but there's 10 times or more that amount that never made it this way. Yeah. So it is not, it's another avenue to be employed in, but it's not the wave of the future. But the problem is that everybody seems to think that this is going to be where they're going to make their money, and no one's going out and getting learning a trade anymore. No one's going out and learning how to conduct themselves in reality, and it's going to hurt the future. I mean, think about your infrastructure, your buildings, your roads, your highways, your everything we rely on, your power supply, all that stuff. If we don't have people that know how to maintain it and fix it, we're going to be back in the Stone Age in the next couple of generations, because no one's going to be able to maintain any of this. It's all going to go away. It's all going to fall down. You're going to be living in a New York, like I live in New York. So I'll be living in a New York City that's just like the one you saw in I Am Legend, with deer running through the streets and everything's overgrown because people can't live there anymore. You know, they don't look at that. And that's a reality. I mean, I work in the electrical field, power supply. I've been working in that for 18 years now. And you know, it's a trade, you know, electrical trade. And we don't have people applying to do it like we used to. We don't have the replacement numbers aren't there. You know, if this whole next wave of people that are set to retire leave and we don't have enough people to come in, that's bad. And that's not something that's going to happen in the future. That's happening now. So, you know, and renewable energy and all that stuff, those are all different conversations, and that's fine. But the reality of the fact is that's still far off. And it still takes old systems and old know-how to start those systems up and keep them running. So it's, you know, you're not just taking the old way and getting rid of it completely to go this new route. You still need that old system to power this new system. You don't need as much as you used to, so that's where the good part falls in, but you still need it, and no one's learning how to do it. You know, there a lot of people want to go and learn how to engineer these things, but they don't want to learn how to work on them.
That's it. It's like you want the end, you know, want to sit there and organize it all, but you don't want to actually do the process. Right. And I think that's a lot to do with comics as well. I was watching, I saw a little clip by Ready Draws today, and they're talking about, like, you know, nobody's really thinking about all that when it comes to comics. They're thinking about the art, and they're not thinking about the story and how good the story is to go with the art, because the art can be really amazing, but to keep people coming back, you need a good story to keep them tied in. So she was talking about, like, you know, because they had a panel, and it was like, you know, about having copywriters, having editors, and people actually looking over it. For me, I just basically do it, and then I have my, you know, the artist go through it, and I read over it over and over again, and then I send out review copies. Hey, like, you know, do I need to change anything? Is that, you know, is everything all right on this? And then I'll go do that and, you know, have a look at that again, and I'll change it accordingly before we go to print. Is that something that you've done, you know, like with your work, you know?
So everything about my process, I've come to realize, isn't typical. It isn't something that I've seen anybody else do, at least not entirely. I get an idea, as being the writer and the artist. I get an idea, and I don't write it down. I storyboard it out.
Right.
I go right into panel breakdowns, stick figures. I'll go through a bunch of versions of that, and then I take that. I do the loose pencils for the page, and then once I have the story all done to that extent, I go in and I dialogue it out, and it's a really, like, I never want to videotape this process because it would probably have a lot of people put me in a straitjacket. But I basically talk out the scene to myself as I'm looking at it, and that's where I get my dialogue from, and I write it down as I get it for each. So I'll do a segment at a time, like a TV segment. You know, you cut to these two characters talking, so I'll do that conversation as its own thing, and then when it cuts to the next segment, which might be a battle between two other people, then I'll do that as its own thing, and I make it all cohesive that way. So it's sort of, the writing isn't like, I don't sit down with an idea and flesh out the whole story in words first and then break that down. Like, I know that's how it's usually done. You have an idea, you write it down, you break it down into pages, then you break it down into captions and dialogue. That's how you know, like I said, I went to college for cartooning and illustration, and that's how they teach you to do it. But I guess because I'm doing both ends of it, I kind of mixed them together, and it's just like this big soup of everything all at once.
Right.
You know, and then I like the way it works. I was happy with the outcome for this past campaign. I like the way the next issue. I'm done with all the pencils for the next book. It's just a matter of getting colorists now and lettering it. But I like the way that's coming out and moving forward. I have a couple of backup stories also that I'm putting in it for other characters that you haven't seen yet that I still wanted to get involved into the universe. And that's pretty much how I do it. It's a weird process, but it's my process. And I don't have a standard way of doing each step. Like, sometimes I'll do everything on, all the pencils are done traditionally, at least for the comic books, for my campaigns and my comic book stuff. It's the loose thumbnails, the thumbnails, the loose pencils, come up with the story, and then go tight pencils, and then I send that off to a colorist. However, sometimes I do the traditional stuff, like I'll do, you know, the thumbnails are always done real small on either scrap paper or I have these little books now that are page size that I do it in those. The next step, which is the loose pencils, usually that can range. I could do those small and then blow them up. I do them on manga size pages, or I'll do it on full 8.5, 11 by 17. It's just whatever I feel like at that moment I'll do. And then the finished pencils are usually 11 by 17. Sometimes I have to transfer it and blow it up. Sometimes they're at the size already. It depends. Yeah. But the finished pencils will be on 11 by 17, and then I scan them. And then I'll do digital changes, corrections. A hand's too small, I'll make it bigger. Or, you know, I missed a big spot of all the blacks, I'll throw in there. I'll do the inking that way. Yeah. And then that's what I'll ship that file off to whoever's going to be coloring it. So it always changes a little bit, but as far as the creative process, I don't write it out and then go to the art. They kind of like exist on the same plane at the same time, you know. And a lot of the storytelling is taking place in my head as I'm drawing it. You know, I'm telling the story to myself, and that's what's moving my hand to do the panel breakdowns and the layouts. It works for me. I can't say if I was a teacher or something, I would tell someone that's how they should do it, because I don't think it would work for everybody.
Yeah. So show us some of the artwork that's, you know, behind you. You got some traditional work there. Can we have a look at that? And I'll put you on full, and that way we can see some of that. And then we'll...
Let me see if I can change my Oh, let me stop this.
Right. Let's see.
You just change my camera.
The other way.
Can you see me?
Yep, gotcha.
All right.
So I will put you on solo and we can have a look at that. All right, go for it. Take us through this.
What we have here is, so these are, I'm gonna have to move them a little bit, but this is one of the covers I did for the upcoming book. So this is at 11 by 17, and it's just a photocopy of the finished colors for it.
Right.
And are you familiar with Dan Kemp? He did the
Dan
colors.
Kemp?
Yeah, he did the colors for both of these. This is another cover that I illustrated and he colored. So these two characters, I don't want to give it away because you're introduced to one of them in the current campaign, but basically they're both on the same side, but the woman on top is, you'll find out, is basically the organization's fail-safe in case the one below didn't do the job.
Right.
And so I figured, well, there's a battle scene between the two of them at some point in the story, and this is captured. I mean, no one's falling in the actual story. No one's falling through the window. I hate to do a spoiler, but I figured this would be a cool shot to illustrate for a cover.
Yeah.
They are actually fighting in that building though, so that's
well, so I mean, it's kind of like, gives you a really cool looking image to work on. I mean for visual, right?
Right.
Looks really cool.
And I can show you some of now these were done.
Now, just for a sec there, is that like digital finish there, or is it traditional finish there?
As far as what, the colors?
Yeah, what I'm looking at, is that digital, or is it like like a printout, or is that actual real? Like,
no, this was printed out. This was so the digital file was sent to me, and I just wanted to see it at 11 by 17, so I printed them out.
Cool. Right.
Yeah. I do anything I get back from a colorist or whatever. If it's someone that did a cover for me or whatever, I always print it out 11 by 17 because I want to see it at the size it potentially was done at.
Right.
And I want to see it in real life. I don't always want to see it on the screen.
Right.
But I have. Bear with me one second. I want to show you.
Sure.
This is one of the backup stories that I'm working on for the current campaign. These are just the pencils. I want to put it in order, and I want to leave the last page off because I don't want to give a spoiler.
Sure, that's fine.
Let's see. Is this in order? One.
So this is you drawing traditionally, right?
Yes, this is traditional. These are pages at the 8.5 by 14 size.
Right.
All right. So, can you see this?
Yeah.
All right. So it's basically the character is an Asian American. It takes place back in Wild West times, and she's a bounty hunter.
Right.
And hold on one second. I just want to cover this so it doesn't confuse anybody. All right. And this is one of the cover concepts I did. So this is the character with her horse getting ready to ride into town.
Yeah.
This is the first page. So you have the close of the character comes into town, sees the bar saloon doors. I put a little bit of the background in there for scenery. And then kind of progresses from there. Character's pulling a a photo, which I haven't finished the photo yet because I wanted to get a standard picture that's going to be in there. So,
Right.
but they basically pull out a photo of the person they're looking for. They dismount the horse and walk into the saloon.
Right.
And I
didn't realize that you that you did the shading and all that actually on your traditional. I thought you'd do that in your in your digital.
No, this is, like I said, all my pencils I do traditionally. It's any inking I do or any like touch-ups I'll do digitally. I don't do any of the main drawing, at least not for this, on digital. I'll do a character design digitally from totally digital. I'll do maybe if someone's hired me to do some like a logo or something like that, I'll do that digitally, the whole thing. But that's when it comes to the comics and stuff like that, I do it traditional. I like the ability to put the pencil to paper and complete it that way. It's just a gratification I get as an artist doing it this way, rather that you just don't get it digitally, no matter what they come out with, that it just isn't the same. Like even on a Cintiq, you are drawing onto the screen. Even on my iPad Pro, I'm drawing onto the screen, but it's not the same. I can't spin the page with my hand. Like here, if I want to go sideways with this, I just spin the page. It's that little something, that little motion that as an artist you get used to, and it's part of doing creating.
And also, I think that the traditional pencil, like the way you shade with it, is totally different to the way you'd shade with them digitally.
Yes,
because I've noticed that I would take more care with a pencil than I would with a digital thing, because I know I can like take it back, right? And there's some sort of like, it's like this, I don't know how to describe it, but there's like, there's this a connection between you and the paper and the pen that you don't have when you do digital.
Yeah, again, it's not something I can put my finger on and say, hey, this is why I like this better. It's just one of those things. Like it's more gratifying to me personally to do it this way as opposed to digital. And again, I scan everything in, so eventually it's there. People that like working digitally can, but I mean, I like being able to erase with an actual eraser if there's something that I feel is done wrong, or I don't know. And the other thing is so the as good as they've gotten supposedly with the pressure sensitivity of the stylus or the eye pencil or whatever, I naturally have a heavy hand. I mean, like these are pencils. Like a lot of people look at my pencils and be like, "Hey, you inked that?" And I'm like, "No, those are my pencils." So I can control with a pencil the values of my darks better than I can on digital, because my lightest pressure still is too much pressure for that to do a distinguishing line.
Right.
So it always comes out as dark as it's going to be. So I don't like that about digital too. And then, there's been times where I've scanned something and I was like, a page, and I'm like, oh damn, I forgot to put a background here, or I forgot to finish the pencils on the pants on this person or whatever. And I try to go in and do it digitally, the pencils. And even with the pencil setting, even with the value and everything like that, it just never matches up. It always looks like it was done as an afterthought. So I end up finishing it traditionally and then rescanning it. So I mean, but that's my process. Like this is there's a fight scene.
Okay, so finishing up here, we do like what is it called, like a words of wisdom.
Hold on one second. Let me change that.
I just wait for you. And so basically, I give you 3 to 5 minutes to come up with something that you've learned over the years and and I'm not sure if you've seen any other ones we do, but just, kind of like speak to the young person who's getting into arts or writing or wants to get into comics. And so we give you a chance to do the words of wisdom. So give you a couple of minutes to think about that. And as we finish, we'll put you on solo, and I'll get you to.
So this is what I would say. This is what I would say to up and coming.
One sec. I gotta put you on solo first.
Okay.
I'll count you in. 3, 2.
All right. So, what I would say to new people coming into this, I tell you, listen, it's a lot of hard work. And you'll hear everybody say that. It is. Honing your craft is a lot of work in and of itself. I would say, listen to everybody's advice. Anyone that has something to contribute to your style, your process, talking about the business in general, no matter what aspect it is, take it all in. After you've listened, after you've had the conversations and talked to them, you can make a decision afterwards whether or not it was something you could apply to yourself or not. But just always keep creating. If you're an artist, if you're a writer, if you're a pencilist, inker, colorist, whatever it is, just keep at it and just constantly strive to learn new things and get better, make your craft better. The better you are, the more you're out there, the more you do it. That's the other thing. Put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to ask people, for help or for advice. If you're looking to do something, don't let your own inhibitions hold you back from at least trying. You never know until you try. So, learn from everybody. Take in as much knowledge as you can. Continue creating, whether it's a success or not. You put something out there and it fails, go back to it. Really analyze why it might have not worked out and what can I do to change that. Talk to more people doing what you're doing in your field to pick their brains. Or if you're not really a social person, you don't feel comfortable, at least look at what everybody's doing. Take a little bit of everything you see and apply it to yourself. In today's age, a lot of people want instant gratification. If they fail the first time, they're scared to try it a second time. They get discouraged. They move on. Don't. You're never going to get there that way. If you move on to something else, but you have that same mindset, it's going to go the same way. Very few people have the luck or the gift to get it on the first shot and become a huge success on the first go round. A lot of people that you might admire today that have a lot of popularity, a lot of fame, they didn't get there on their first try, believe it or not. There was failures and a lot of learning from those failures. You got to learn from your mistakes. If you don't make a mistake, you'll never know if you're doing it right, or did you just get lucky? That's it. I mean, just keep going at it. If it's a dream of yours, always keep that dream and that goal in sight. Don't get discouraged. It could happen for you, it could not. But if it's something you really love doing and you believe in, you put in the hard work, you got a better shot at it than you would if you just walked away from it and got discouraged. So that's basically, just keep up hard work and stick to it. That's what I kind of, that's my input. That's what I feel. That's what I've been doing. That's what I'm going to continue doing. And that's what I've seen a lot of other people do. And, like I said, again, pick people's brains, just learn as much as you can. And if it's something you can't apply, toss it out, leave the room for something else that you find later. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you, Christian. So with that said, we'll finish off here, and thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate it. I know everybody who's in the comic industry, is basically working all the time to, on their art, on their writing. So any time that's, given to me, I really appreciate it. And I'm sure whoever's watching and, will find that you know, and they appreciate that as well as they learn from what you're saying and what they're saying. So with that in mind, thank you, and we'll see you
Thank
next
you.
time. And for everybody that's been watching, thank you guys, and hopefully, you know, you got something out of this. And there are other ones, you know, other speakers as well, and other interviews, but do check this one out and check out all the others. And I really appreciate you guys for your time to check out our channel. For wherever you are, be well, be safe, and if you have a loved one, you know, next to you, whatever, let them know that you know that you love them and give them a hug. And if you don't have anybody close by and everywhere else, get on social media, let them know that you care today. You never know what people are going through, and your word might be what they need right now. So thank you, Christian.
Thank
See
you.
you next time, mate. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Take care.
All right. Kakiten, everybody else. See you next time.